Welcome, listeners, to We Are Listening, the podcast where we delve deep into topics surrounding holistic wellness. And today, we are privileged to have Aditi Manocha, a holistic health coach with focus on gut and hormone healing, joining us. Aditi's journey from battling her own symptoms of PCOS and gut imbalance to empowering others is truly inspiring. And with her certification from IIN New York, she's on a mission to help women take charge of their hormones and gut health. Welcome, Aditi, on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Pulkit, for having me here.
So, Didi, before we dive into our questions, why don't you share about your evolutionary journey of into becoming a health coach and enabling women out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, incidentally, I am a lawyer by training, Pulkit, and I practiced law for a few years and even pursued a master's degree in international relations and public policy. And I have worked with some wonderful organizations in my career, leading law firms and even the World Bank and a bunch of other organizations. But the whole time I knew something was nagging at me because of my own health issues. I got diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. Terrible name, not everybody has cysts, but it is an endocrine and metabolic disorder, and it has become quite common now, especially amongst South Asian women. It affects women worldwide, but affects South Asian women disproportionately. Starts in as early as their teens and ends up getting diagnosed even later in life. So, because of my own health issues, I got interested in it very early on. I wanted to know what are hormones and how are they affecting how I feel, my menstrual cycle, my appetite, my hair fall, my acne. And as a teenager, where most teenagers are very sensitive to comments on their weight, on their appearance, and it triggered a lot of thoughts in my head, and that's how it started. I've seen several doctors over the years uh, who have had varying takes on managing PCOS, and it was only recently in the last 4 or 5 years that I started looking at it as a holistic problem and not just a
Mhm.
fertility issue or a weight issue or a menstruation issue. And with the help of a health coach and functional medicine practitioner that I engaged, I was able to reverse a lot of my symptoms and feel better after decades of trying different things. And that's when I'm like, all right, this really works. Like, why hasn't somebody talked about this in so much detail to me before? Like, why didn't I know this? I've been struggling for so long. And once I started feeling better with not just my hormonal issues, but the related gut issues, because hormonal issues don't happen in a silo. They're always, causing some kind of havoc in the body, and some other system is getting affected. And for a lot of patients with PCOS, it is either gut health or mental health, which are also closely related. So once I saw what a change nutrition and lifestyle and targeted supplements in my case could make, like, this is fascinating. I want to talk to more people about it. I want to make a difference in other women's lives because I have grown up seeing a lot of women struggle, not just with PCOS, but also with thyroid and diabetes and IBS and migraines and weight issues and just so many unexplained things for which they were just given a pill and sent off and given generic advice like eat healthy, lose weight, move more, like nothing very substantive, nothing very, holistic. And that's when I'm like, okay, I need to go back to school, get trained in this to be able to offer this service to people professionally. So, yeah, that was a very long answer to your question, but that's how it started.
No, that was pretty comprehensive and helped us understand your background. Didi, we are going to be discussing about PCOS today and understand a lot more about PCOS in depth. But before we get into that questioning, we have seen our lifestyles evolving around the modern era a lot, And with that, a lot of stress and anxieties have crept into our lives. So can you help us understand how these contemporary lifestyles have really impacted the women's health specifically? Yes, it has impacted a lot, both the genders out there, all the genders out there. But in context of women's, health, can you, shed some light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, because women and men, we have our physiologies are different, our biology is different, right? Men, interestingly, have a cycle with the sun, so it's a daily cycle. Most energetic in the middle of the day and more energetic in the morning than later in the night. So very much with the cycle of the sun. Whereas women's cycles are lunar in nature, right? We are different every week, just like the moon. For some people, the fluctuations are very vast and very drastic. That's when we feel like, okay, we need to balance out some of the hormones. But because of menstruation and hormones and our natural cycles, we're not the same biologically, right? For instance, during the week of menstruation or just before that, a lot of women feel a drastic change in mood. They don't feel so good. Some of them struggle with the menstrual cramps and pain and feeling low. But in the middle of the month, which is what we call ovulation, middle of their personal month, right? They're more energetic, they feel more social, they feel like being out there and talking to more people, getting more things done. It's different. The sad thing is that the corporate world was not designed to keep these evolutionary changes in mind, these different biologies in mind. And not to say that this is in any case, in any way, a disability. It's just different. It doesn't make women less competent in any way. We're just as competent, and just that our body works differently. So, what has happened is that we're no longer in tune with our own bodies, with our own cycles. For the sake of convenience, we just want to pop pills because we have an important presentation to give, or we have somewhere to travel, or, just a lot of deadlines creeping up. And we don't have time to sit back, relax, and let our body do its thing. And so that has made us a little bit more disconnected from our own selves. I think one of the big ways we see that is with nutrition and diet and lifestyle, right? We're eating convenience foods and anything on the go, anything that is fast, anything that will just give us like quick energy and like tide us over to the next thing we need to do. And we don't have the time to wait and think and take more thoughtful decisions. When we come back from work, we're tired, but we also want to unwind. So we end up in front of the TV, or we end up going to a bar or restaurant just to like unwind. And the body never really gets time to be to itself. We're always giving it a lot of stimulation, right? We're stimulated at work in front of a medium screen or looking at a small screen, which is our phone. Then we come back and we're looking at the big screen, right? This constant input of information. So the body doesn't get time to digest and assimilate everything that's been thrown at it.
Yep,
And
yep.
that has really thrown our hormones and our mental health for a toss.
I can somewhere relate to what you're saying, because somewhere the same applies to men as well and other genders as well. With corporates coming into picture, often people having, let's say, a very basic ailment as viral as well, they'll just pop in a pill and go to their office for their work, and at times it just ends up messing up with their body altogether. I'd like to understand from your experience. Now you have been in the corporates, you used to head some of the leading legal firms out there as well. If given a chance to you to make some changes in the organizational policies or structures as part of providing better opportunities or healthcare plans around women care, what would be those?
That's a great topic, very fascinating. I'm seeing a lot of debates around this, especially with regard to menstrual leave that came up as a topic and a policy decision. And there's so many pros and cons there, right? On one hand, with a lot of empathy, I'm like, yes, absolutely. Women should be given the freedom to take care of their health and, take a day or two off if, they're in that much pain. But on the other hand, I'm also aware that if that does happen, it is going to be used as a weapon against women. It is going to be used to say that, oh, you're less competent, you're not available for X number of days in a month or X number of days in a year, and your colleagues have to pick up the slack, or who knows whether you will be available if we need to travel somewhere or like give a presentation on that day and you're so it's going to become a tool of oppression in a lot of cases. And so I'm like really torn personally, because on one hand, when I was in that position, and of course I have healed myself to the point that it is no longer debilitating pain for me, because I realized that painful periods, for instance, are not normal. They're common, right? But they're often a sign of some underlying hormonal imbalance or some kind of dysbiosis which needs to be healed and not just thrown pills at. But I have been there. I have been where a lot of women are today, and they don't probably have the adequate support to understand and get better. So I can completely relate with this dilemma. And honestly, I don't have a straight answer to something like menstrual leave, right? But what I would say can be done without changing anything for the other gender, every organization can look at having health coaches on their board. Like, a lot of organizations have financial advisors and other professional advisors on their board. I would recommend that organizations invest in corporate wellness programs more comprehensively. A lot of them do. And I think the pandemic made mental health more of a topic to be taken seriously. And I think now it comes down to understanding the root cause of why mental health gets so bad for people. Often it's rooted in stress or poor lifestyle and poor nutrition, because mental health has many causes, but
Yep.
a lot of these are rooted in this too. And it would be nice to see organizations investing in, like, okay, a women's health coach specifically, or a holistic health coach, so that other than just coming back confused from a doctor's appointment and coming back with another pill and getting frustrated, which I see that a lot of my clients go through, and that is why people like me exist now, because we're able to bridge the gap between the kind of help they have been getting and what they would like to get. So yeah, I think it would be nice to see more of that, more comprehensive corporate wellness programs with a focus on holistic health or integrative nutrition, or some if they want to focus specifically on women's health. So that is, to begin with, more awareness and more education about it at an organizational level.
Mhm.
Only then can more informed policies be made.
Great, great. Those are some amazing insights. And Didi, coming on to the main topic, let's get to the very root cause of it and start to understand what actually is PCOS and what factors contribute to to its development in a woman's body out there. So if you help our listeners understand what exactly is PCOS.
Yeah, so PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. And because of all the words that have been thrown in together, one would think that it is somebody has cysts on their ovaries, and therefore they would likely have trouble with fertility. In some cases, that is true. Some women do have cysts and they do struggle with fertility, but that is not all. I do wish the name would change to encompass the entirety of problems it can cause in a woman's body. Very simply put, it does cause metabolic issues, right? It is often coexisting with the insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, especially if it goes undiagnosed for really long. So, what happens is that there are three main hormones that I will talk about: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Right? We all have all three of these in different proportions. But what happens with PCOS is that there is an imbalance in the three, right? We can either have more of estrogen, more than what our body needs, ideally. It's not getting circulated properly for different reasons, and we have more of estrogen in comparison to progesterone, or more than what we need in our body, and that leads to weight issues and a lot of like emotional upheavals. Some women have a lot of testosterone, which is typically higher in quantity in males than females. So if women have more testosterone than they ideally should have, that causes, facial hair and male pattern baldness, or thinning hair, and again, a lot of mood swings tending towards like anger and irritability. Testosterone can be hugely useful as well because athletes typically have a higher quantity of testosterone in their body than non-athletes. But for PCOS, the imbalance is such that the results are usually undesirable. And progesterone, which is typically our calming hormone, if that is lower in quantity than what we would like, that's what leads to, feeling on the edge, feeling angry often, feeling irritable. So people usually see on the surface symptoms that there are, menstrual irregularities or fertility issues or weight issues and facial hair, but there is so much else that is going on under the surface. If these hormones are not in balance, we don't feel comfortable or calm, and sometimes we feel like a loss of control over our own reactions, which is not to say that we don't know how to handle ourselves. It's nowhere a woman's fault for struggling with PCOS. I would say it is a lack of education and understanding on how to manage a condition like this. And sadly, because of the lack of that, a lot of labels get thrown at us. And the only, long-term solution that doctors often give to women is the birth control pill, which doesn't even suit a lot of women. The birth control pill is interesting because it it appears to regulate the hormones by giving you a monthly withdrawal bleed, which resembles a period, but it is not an actual period. So women's hormones often struggle more after they come off the birth control pill, right? So it's a whole myriad of problems. A lot of women don't even agree with it, so they have to like try a bunch of birth control options, and they're dealing with so many side effects, headaches and nausea and GI issues, and loss of appetite. Some women do great on it and they get their help with acne and weight issues and they feel fabulous, but a lot of women don't. Another solution that is like off-label solution is metformin, which is typically used to treat diabetes patients, that type 2 diabetes, to manage their blood sugar levels. And with PCOS also, often there is, because it's a metabolic issue, there is a blood sugar imbalance, right? So there are symptoms of hypoglycemia and dizziness if we haven't eaten for too long, or if we just ate a lot of sugar and 2 3 hours later then we have a sugar crash. That is typically hypoglycemia, and metformin helps to manage that. And I personally have been on metformin and the birth control pill both, and I preferred metformin to the pill a lot more. It did have some side effects, but the pill had many more. So it was like before I knew better, like how to avoid taking these medication and still heal myself, metformin was definitely the better solution for me. But it's different for everybody how their body reacts to it. And unfortunately, every medication has some of the effects, some or the other side effect, whether it's in the short term or long term.
Mm-hmm.
So then I found out that metformin has its side effects too. In the short term, it could be a lot of, patients struggle with diarrhea and cramping and nausea and again, change in appetite. But in the long term, it chips away at the B12 levels in your body. And so it starts affecting your energy levels after a period of time, right? Because B12 is mm, one of the integral vitamins we need to have in the body. And if you're on medication every day, it is going to chip away at that reserve in your body, especially if you're a vegetarian or you live in a vegetarian household. Vegetarian food doesn't have a lot of naturally occurring B12, right? Unless you're eating copious amounts of certain foods. So yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of like anxiety and depression that coexists with PCOS because there's so many imbalances in the body. There so many self image issues. They're just feeling like something's not right and something's not enough, and I want to change this, but I don't know how, and we don't have enough information or accurate information to be able to feel empowered or make some informed decisions.